We're going to get to the amazing podcast I did with the Mind Pump crew in just a second here. But first, today is a very special day. If you're listening to this when it was released, May 8th, this is the day before my new company I've been working on for the last few months is released. So May 9th, Performance Nut Butter. So that's a nut butter. It's a macadamia coconut cashew blend in single serving pouches that is geared towards the CrossFit community, the weightlifting community, the active, just generally active, healthy community. It's a paleo, vegan, and ketogenic friendly snack. As you can imagine, that ticks off a lot of boxes. So that is available starting May 9th is a Kickstarter. So if you want to get that product, I'm going to be having an early bird special. That means it's actually a super early bird special. The first few hundred people that come in and get it are going to get it for only $20 a box, including shipping. So that's $20 a box, and that's 10 pouches in a box. That's $2 a pouch. And once again, including shipping. That's like close to the cost it makes. It is for me to make it. So I'm really excited about this. You can go to performancenutbutter.com to get it. If this is May 8th and the day before the launch, go to performancenutbutter.com, sign up for the email thing, and I'll send you a reminder tomorrow. But if it's May 9th or any date after that, performancenutbutter.com, and you can contribute to the Kickstarter. Once again, I'm hugely excited. I've got a really cool video for the Kickstarter video. Spent a decent amount of money, at least for me, on that Kickstarter video. So if you want to see it, I would check it out. performancenutbutter.com. It is delicious. In fact, before we get started with the podcast, here's a little bit of what the Mind Pump crew had to say about the product.
Girl, I got the perfect product for you.
Ooh, tell me.
It's that nut butter.
Ooh.
It's tasty. It's good. It's healthy for you. Nut butter all over your face.
Oh.
Sorry. I wanted to do your commercial for you.
There you go.
Dude, you got the jingle.
Watch
Let's do
it. Watch
it.
it. Shit's going to sell out tomorrow, bro.
It's that nut butter,
Hey,
girl.
Hey, it's delicious for reals, though.
It is.
It's
really
delicious
good.
for reals.
So that was a little jingle that the Mind Pump crew did for me. Like they said, though, it does taste really good, and that's performancenutbutter.com. But let's get into the actual episode. This episode was amazing. I had so much fun talking with these guys. They're really smart guys and just good-looking, buffed-out dudes. So we got into a lot of different things, and one of the things I did in this podcast, and this is towards the end, I think this podcast got better. The second half of this podcast was way better than the first half, and that's because I was nervous. I was very nervous to interview these guys. But one of the questions I asked them towards the end was what advice would each of them have for someone in their 20s? But we dove in deeper, and I asked them, well, would you have actually listened to yourself? Like, if you would have went back in time and told your 20-something-year-old self this advice, would you have listened? And they all said no, and I asked them, well, how could you get your 20-year-old self to listen, your 20-something-year-old self to listen? And they had some great advice on how to actually do that. So this episode is full of tips, tricks, all kinds of great advice for people in their 20s. So let's dive into the actual episode now. So for the listeners out there, I'm up here in San Jose. I'm here with the Mind Pump crew, and really excited to be here. So first off, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
No problem, man.
Absolutely.
Adam thinks you're handsome. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, Sal's a little insecure because this last week
I'm
we've
not.
actually
I'm
had
actually pretty confident.
two Italians
He
actually
is.
better looking than him, and one of them arguably more intelligent.
Definitely. Well, it's not arguably. He's pretty.
No, bro, you don't give yourself
It's
enough
definitive.
credit.
It's
You
definitive.
you have other areas
Hold on
that
a
you're
second.
more brilliant
Dom
than.
D'Agostino comes into our place. You know who doing
Yeah,
this, Travis?
no, he was on my podcast.
Oh,
super smart guy.
Oh, fucking, he's a brilliant guy. Comes in here.
I didn't know you had Dom, dude. That's
Super
awesome.
brilliant
That's
guy and handsome. And you're saying he's way more handsome, but we're all like equal in terms of intelligence. That's crazy.
It's dude, you have a thing about you. Let me tell you that is just as brilliant.
Magical.
Yeah, it is magical. I do.
finished the sentences too.
You do. That's
All
what
right.
I'm saying.
All right, let Travis go.
You guys,
here,
please take us, Travis.
So let's actually get started with your story. How did you guys get involved? How did you guys start the podcast? For any listeners that don't know, bring us up to date. Like,
So Adam was using Grindr and he swiped right, and that's when
I found Sal,
That was the magic
and
process.
it was pretty much.
No, we've been in the three of us have independently been in the fitness industry for between 16 to 20 years. So we've all been professionally in this industry for a very, very
I
long
wouldn't
time.
say professionally, but we've been in the industry for that long.
Well, what I
We're
mean
still
is
figuring
employed.
it out. Let's be honest.
And I actually did not know Adam and Justin until we started Mind Pump. But I had heard of, in particular, I had heard of Adam because we were both coming up.
Extremely attractive guy that was
Yeah, and in a very large corporate fitness gym industry. It was a 24-hour fitness during its heyday. And I had heard about him, and people had told me I needed to work with the guy, and I think he'd heard the same about me. And that was about it. Fast forward, we're all pretty much out of that particular company, but we're all working in the fitness industry in some way, shape, or form. And I think, what was it? I think I sent you my sales video for MAPS Anabolic.
Yeah.
And I wanted your opinion on it because I had heard, I had respected Adam through mutual friends. And he called me. And we got on the phone, and we're just like, we need to do a podcast. And that's literally how it kind of all started. We all met at his
Adam
house.
had to sell me on you.
Yeah. Well, Justin
Justin didn't like me that much.
Who's this guy?
Well, Justin, what year was it? Justin was fresh out of college, came in and from Chicago. Just finished up
Just ate a bunch of deep dish pizzas.
right.
Holding some fluff.
Landed in my lap in San Jose, California, and he was a trainer for me. And actually, when he first started, I thought he was going to suck. He was too quiet. I didn't think that he was going to be outgoing enough to survive. And I got him and another guy at the same time, and I actually bet more money on the other kid.
Yeah.
But
who proved you wrong?
That's right. So Justin ended up being the badass and ended up being my right-hand man for many years. He ran that club with me, and then we went over to Santa Teresa not long after that, ran that, and then the entire time that we were together, we were any club that we were working at, we were setting like sales records and things like that, which is how I always heard about Sal. Sal was very well known. He's much older than me, so he had came through 24-hour fitness before me.
He was the one with wisdom,
and everyone always
gray hair.
All the top guys in the company at one point either worked with him or for him, so he had that reputation, and we hit it off as soon as we met. And Justin, when he was working for me, like I said, he was somebody who I thought was really quiet, which is ironic too. When we got into podcasting, he was like, "Dude, I don't want to fucking talk on a podcast. I don't talk about myself. Are you kidding me? This fucking
this
sucks."
is all ironic for me, even being here. So this is great. Yeah, like Adam said, so I basically connected with them, and business wise, I literally just only thought of it business wise. Wow, this is another way that we can advertise, because we were working together on nutrition guides, and we were working on this app, and I'm just like, I'm realizing, looking at business, we need a megaphone. We need something to get us out there that's, a different source where we can get marketing. And so I'm just looking at this from a marketing perspective, like, wow, this is an interesting way to kind of get your voice out there. And I had literally had like not listened to any podcasts, and so this was just going in totally blind. So we were all just kind of like, whoa, let's just figure this out, and I don't know, we need some alcohol. Let's get this started.
That's how we rolled the first few episodes. I mean,
they were absolutely terrible.
We knew nothing about
zero.
podcasts. We didn't know anything about it. Luckily,
but we know a little bit more about fitness. So.
Yeah,
we leaned hard on fitness.
And Doug was actually my client. That's how we met Doug. He had hired me years ago, and we'd started working together. And then we both decided we were gonna. I came up with the MAPS program. We were gonna advertise that together. And then when the podcast idea came up, we just thought it was perfect. And luckily, Doug had all the equipment. So this is what he did for fun, is he had recording equipment,
Doug's
he had
really
cameras.
passionate about this stuff.
But he's not in this industry either. He wasn't in any of this stuff. So it's like we all started this completely, I guess, naive or ignorant to the challenges or what to expect. We kind of thought we would do well, not knowing how difficult it can be. And luckily it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's how a lot of businesses is. You go into it thinking, it's going to be super easy, and then you slowly realize that's a little bit harder than we thought.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about how did you grow this podcast so big, because it's doing pretty well now.
So what's interesting about podcasts is when you look at some of the top podcasts, many of those people became big, or at least were well known before they started podcasting. So either they wrote a bestseller, or they had a blog with millions of followers, or some other medium. Then they went to podcasting, and then that grew. Very rarely do you see a podcast start as a podcast and then take off. Now, of course, we were completely unaware of this. Again, we were ignorant to the whole business of podcasting. The most reach that we had when we started was Adam's Instagram page. which I think at the time was like 21,000 followers or something like that.
something like that.
It wasn't massive, but it was all we had. And then we had, a friend of ours that we had started originally, but he ended up not working with us. So it was just Adam's Instagram.
He was our stable horse.
And that's pretty much it.
It
And
whored me out for the first couple of years.
the first thing that we did that really gave us a foothold was we hit the new and notable section on iTunes, which I think it's like a 2-month period, if I'm not mistaken.
8 weeks.
It's 8-week period to get on there. And once you're on there, then you get some, they see you.
Are you
on
familiar
iTunes.
with that? Are you familiar with how that works with the first
Yeah.
8 weeks? Yeah.
So, and I think the way we got on there, we had a good strategy. We knew we needed downloads, so we uploaded, I think, 4 or 5 episodes right off the bat. We needed people to leave reviews, so we would ask for reviews. So we had a little call to action, and then we had our CrossFit episode, and that one's the one that kind of, I think, initially it hit like, I don't know, a couple thousand or 3,000 downloads right off the bat, which is huge for a new podcast. And so that catapulted us to new and notable, which gave us a little bit of a foothold,
So what does your guys' exercise and diet look like now? Because, I mean, I'm sure it's changed dramatically over the years, but what's a typical day of food look like for you guys?
The best way to describe, we're all a little different, I think.
All of it. The way we train and the way we eat are all different for sure.
Although I will say it seems like we're all. Here's a funny thing: when you start to discover, and I'm the guy that speaks in certainties, right? So here I go. When you look at certain things and you're trying to figure out the answers to them, the answer is usually the answer. In other words, and it's not ever as black and white as this, but if you look at 2 + 2 and you got 5 people in a room trying to figure out the answer, if they all work hard enough, eventually everybody's going to come up with the same answer. It seems like the 3 of us are starting to. Our styles of nutrition and exercise are starting
We're melding into one human being.
And it's true because when we first started, like, I didn't do shit when it came to mobility. Like, none of that stuff. Like, that was Justin's wheelhouse. Well, now I do a lot of that stuff. Adam does a lot of mobility. Nutrition, our nutrition, the way we all started eating has changed quite a bit. So, like, my eating, I guess if you were to categorize it, it's
wellness focused.
Yeah, it's very wellness focused, but it's keto-ish because that seems to work real well for me. And my training is much more intuitive these days, much more focused on range of motion, mobility, and getting strength in ranges of motions that I didn't have that strength. So I'm not looking to max out, in the same range of motion with my squat. Now I'm trying to go deeper, lighten the load, and then build up within there, for example.
Do you guys do a lot of sports and stuff like that too, or is it pretty much just weight room mobility?
Yeah, Sal, do you guys do a lot of sports?
Yeah, what's a
Do you
sport?
guys do a lot of sports?
Not anymore. I used to train jiu-jitsu, but that's pretty much it. If it involves a ball, no.
Yes, Sal's not the most. Justin was the one who played collegiate level football and did rugby, so he's more the athlete. I played ball in high school and stuff, but
Did you play for your high school?
yeah. What you think I would refer? I played ball in high school, like if I played in the fucking basketball.
Well, I don't know.
on weekends or something. Like you
I
can't
made
say
it freshman year,
Yeah,
and then
I used to play.
I rode the.
I
used to play at the park when I was.
I was hoping I could say I played in high school. I was waiting
played
to see.
flag
I was like,
football.
I played on
me
a
too.
team. I should clarify
my
that.
bad.
But
My bad.
but I played in a men's rec league. In fact, Taylor, the guy who's got the camera over there, that's how him and I met. We played on a men's league. I did that all the way till I was 30. So I stopped playing ball after I tore my ACL and MCL at 28, and then rehabbed myself, came back, did a level 3 sprain on one ankle, taped myself up, stubborn ass, kept playing. Then I got a level 2 sprain on the other ankle, and then finally looked at myself and said, I probably shouldn't be playing ball anymore. And if I'm going to play ball, I should dedicate the time to actually train my body correctly. And I just had that moment where I realized that and said, I'm not going to be playing ball for a while. And that's actually kind of what transitioned me into the bodybuilding world. So that in business, like I entered in competing strictly for business. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that I had this passion for physique because I always talk about aesthetics because I like training for aesthetics. But I never really had this passion to get into bodybuilding. I just saw it as a great entryway to get known on a social platform because, I'd been doing fitness business for, 15 plus years. And when we first started, that shit didn't exist. You know, there wasn't Instagram, and you know, Facebook was really just coming about. Like people weren't
we
using.
had dinosaurs and rocks.
So you know, we've had to, you know, we were very successful early on in our career because we worked for a really good company and did well in it. But then, you know, we've all gone off and done different businesses and different directions. And I tell you what, it's evolved a lot. You know, this generation Y and Z is so different, and you know, learning that and figuring that out, and like how do you evolve fitness? And I really felt like fitness it's been behind for a really long time. So a lot of my motivation to getting into competing was solely on, okay, let's get my name out there, get recognized.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, him going through that process, it opened up so many things for us. Like, it was like, wow, look at what they're doing
together,
here.
Right? You guys were working together at the time?
Yeah, and I mean, that was the funnel. So, I mean, even just looking at internet marketing and all these different things of how to sell your business online, like, you really need an audience before you even get started. And so, like, Adam had that mentality, like, okay, well, here's what I can tangibly do. I can get myself, you know, from bad shape into, like, amazing, awesome shape, and try and, like, document that process, because we'd seen how, like, crazy that was, like, when people would go through that transformational process to get on, like, some TV show and then they explode, right? Because people love that whole process. So anyways, he got a bunch of people that, like, were really into what he was doing with that, and like showing his progress with that, getting not only just in shape, but now he's like a professional physique athlete. So, you know, him doing that from a business perspective was very beneficial. And then we kind of took that energy and synergy, and then we kind of put it all together once we connected with Sal and all that. But yeah, like that was a huge piece to the puzzle altogether. So we all kind of had like all these different backgrounds, and you know, I definitely had more of a athletic minded background, and so the way that I train and everything now has shifted.
The unconventional training, I think, has been such a huge, the fact that we have introduced like mace bells and Indian clubs and kettlebells, like that's all Justin. That's his influence on Sal and I. You know, of course, being in the industry as long as we have, we were versed enough to understand them and have used them before. But I mean, Justin's been training with them.
He actually works out with them.
Yeah. for a long time. So it was really, really cool to introduce that. And I feel like there's so many good things with kettlebells and Indian clubs and mace bells. And the average person doesn't know, you know, how to use them or knows what they're really for. And so I think him bringing that to the table and us introducing that to the population, I think has been really powerful.
For me, one of the biggest things I noticed with using these, they call them unconventional tools. Reality is they've been around longer than barbells and dumbbells. But every time you use something or you handle something different or you learn a new skill, there are new pathways getting created in the brain. There's new neural connections that get formed. And the more you practice these new techniques, whether it be balancing on one foot or, you know, riding a unicycle or using a mace bell, the more you do them, the more these neural connections solidify, which is one of the reasons why you never forget to ride a bike. So learning all these different techniques and movements that have a long, history for fitness is so beneficial for your overall fitness. So I've noticed improvements in my traditional barbell lifts and just everyday moving. And it's not that there's necessarily magic behind a kettlebell or a mace bell or a club. It's just that it's different. It's established. So we've got good patterns with them. We know how to use them right. And it makes my body better at just moving. So it's just one of those things that for me was a huge breakthrough in the way I thought about fitness.
So one of the things you guys have done very well is been able to make money off something you're really into, something you're passionate about. Does most of your income, if you're open to sharing it, come from now the MAPS product, the Facebook group, private coaching?
Adam's porn videos probably bring in the majority.
That's
viral.
Yeah. That is the majority of the money.
Second place is
it's a niche community, but they pay well. So.
Second place is our programs. I know our programs are our top revenue producer. You know, one of the things you want to keep in mind when you're doing an online business, a lot of times people think I'm going to build an audience and then I'm going to make money off of advertising. Advertising will make you money when you get really big. But until you get really big, it's not going to make you much. So if you get, if you have a YouTube channel and your videos are getting, 10, 20,000 views, that's pretty good. You're not in the millions of views, but that's not bad. But if you just rely on...
That's also one video, too, because the way they pay, a lot of people don't understand how they pay. It's like... It's based off of the amount of views and that someone watches that commercial for
like 15
for at least 15 seconds. If they don't watch it for 15 seconds, they skip it. You don't get paid on that shit. So
yeah. You need a lot of views to make a decent amount of money. But even podcasting,
And
you need a lot of
consistently, too.
downloads to get, to be able to charge a certain amount or whatever. Where the money is in the social media and podcasting, YouTube, and all these for most people is in selling your own products. Because if you have a product, I mean, if you created a product that let's say your margin profit was $100, we'll just say it's easy number around. Let's say you made $100 on selling your product, and you sold 10,000 of them. Well, first of all, 10,000 in internet land is nothing, right? 10,000 event, you're not even famous. Nobody knows who you are, right? But 10,000 at $100 a pop profit, you're a millionaire. So I think if people get into this type of I want to make money through social media, create a good product that you think has good value, that people will buy in value, and then use your whatever reach you get. Because I think almost anybody can get some decent reach. Not everybody's going to go huge, but you can get some reach, and you're not going to make it off advertising.
Well, it's no different than building a normal brick and mortar, except for now we have this extended reach when you think about it. And the funny part about all this is that the guy Taylor with the camera right now, he was actually the one that inspired me to go this direction. So I didn't even have a Instagram or Facebook. I hated that shit. And I remember when we first met, and he had some nice shoes on all the time. He was driving a nice car. He was working out at 2:00 and then 9 a.m. I was like, what the fuck is these kids selling drugs? And I knew he was kind of a square kid, so I was like, I don't think he's doing that. So when I asked him, he's like, oh no,
he's not that cool.
No. And he was, he was all.
That's why Adam became friends with him.
Right. All right. I thought he was going to be my drug dealer. It didn't work out that way.
Hey,
though.
man.
See, what he was doing was he was slanging shoes and
Slanging.
And I was so impressed that he had built
back of a van.
this solid ass business basically by himself through his Facebook community, and he actually didn't have that crazy. It wasn't huge. He didn't have millions of people. I think he had like 10 or 20,000 people on his Facebook, and I think he had double that on his Twitter. And he was building a 6-figure business by himself, and I thought, wow, that's fucking crazy that you can do that. But what he did really well that I took from that was, he had found like a niche group of people. So, and when he started, he told me, he's like, man, I'm not making a lot of money. He said, when I'm flipping shoes, he's like, what I'm doing though is I'm connecting all these people with the same thing. They like the same stuff, right? Like these guys are all into Jordans, all into sneakerheads, right? So you have this community of 10,000, but guess what? All 10,000 are all into sneakers. So then he builds a business off of that where he's got, clocks that have sneakers on them, air fresheners that look like Jordan sneakers and Yeezys, and all targeting his niche market that he has. And he built a sustainable business off of that. And I was so impressed by that I thought, man, I don't know if I can be huge and famous and reach millions of people, but I know that I have enough to offer that I can reach tens of thousands of people and make an impact, because I've made impacts on thousands of people just locally where I'm at in fitness for as long as I have been. So I thought if I could get my story out there and I could share people my thoughts on fitness and ideologies, I think that I can gather that many people.
It's important to note though that Mind Pump was on the air for a year before we ever decided to monetize.
Yeah.
So our goal, and that's maybe another lesson. I don't know if this is just our lesson or if this is
it's
one
not
that
like
we're
it's
starting
a
with.
formula, but it definitely is what we did.
But I tell you what, if you start a social media platform and you start selling right off the bat, probably not a good idea, right? I think you want to build some credibility where people, they know you're providing great content, they trust you. You're not trying to sell them anything. You build a good,
that loyalty first,
loyal audience, and then I want to take it to the next level. I have to start monetizing type of deal. But we built a little bit of an audience first, which I think is what you want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the next step? So obviously you guys have the MAPS program.
Oh wow!
What's the next business move?
Are you ready for all this or what, dude?
Well, our
be here all day.
The goal behind Mind Pump, and early on we had discussed this and we had decided that really Mind Pump, we have a podcast, and of course our near goal was to grow the podcast as much as possible, meet influential people, enjoy ourselves during the process. But really what we wanted to do is create a media company, a fitness and wellness media company, because number one doesn't exist. Like you don't have like a Sony or a Paramount or whatever for fitness and wellness. Number two, we saw the horrible information that was being disseminated, and we saw this firsthand because we were personal trainers. And when I would have a client that would come in who would consider themselves, educated in fitness, and I'd ask them, well, what do you think about this, that, and the other? The information that they were telling me was, not only was it wrong, it was so wrong that it was scary. And this is just
Yeah, it
this
hurt
is just
my ears.
This is what's out there. Like, you read the fitness magazines, you look at nutrition blogs, and it's horrible bullshit information over and over and over again. And very rarely do you read something and go, okay, this person is speaking the truth. And so we're like, creating there's a need for this. Like,
What's the inherent problem? It's that everybody that's popular are the people with the wrong message, and this is just feeding back into those same insecurities that they're bombarding your average person with, right? You're fat, you're overweight, I'm sexy, and I got this way because I did this, that, and the other with some bullshit supplement attached to it, right? So for us, it's like, oh my God, we've worked with so many different clients, and everybody's coming from all kinds of different walks of life and different variables and different things that, like what's the biggest thing that we could do to impact them that's like a very simple thing that's not sexy but is so important for them to focus on. And how do we get them to sort of quiet all this noise that's out there and listen to people that are more qualified, that have better things to say, and that are way more applicable. And so we're on this hunt to find the quality information out there, make that sexy.
Yeah, so we want to create, we want to discover and promote talent in the fitness and wellness realm that is sending a good message. Of course, it's our opinion what we think a good message is, but people who listen to our show know that we promote longevity, wellness, health, performance, all in ways that are sustainable, smart, and all with the strong foundation in feeling confident in yourself and being able to separate body image from self-image, and working out because you love yourself, not because you hate yourself. And so we want to find that talent, discover that talent, produce it, and put those messages out. And, we want to find people in realms that we're not experts in. I want to find someone who could cook, really well. And I want to find an expert in nutrition. I want to find an expert in, self-help and meditation and, things that, we know are very important. Find those people who have maybe that X factor, and then promote them and become like the Sony of the fitness industry.
Give them something, a voice.
Is there any books for like anyone listening, or even for myself, any books or any of your episodes that you'd recommend?
Well, we got quite a few episodes where we dive in. I mean, we get into a business talk like this every once in a while. I think there's always a Q&A question, and I think we hit it every now and then.
We did one episode.
How about Tom Bilyeu, just from a business
perspective?
Oh,
yeah.
Right?
I mean,
we interviewed
so
amazing episode. One
of the things that's hard to describe and explain what we're doing is we're creating a market right now that doesn't really exist, right? Like this. So that's what makes this challenging. Mind Pump Raw Truth is just the podcast and how we catapult this and started it, but we're really a media company. So, to give the best description of that, I think Tom Bilyeu is a great example if you watch what he's doing. So if you look at him at YouTube, if you go to our Mind Pump TV YouTube, you can kind of see that being built out. So if you pay attention to our playlists and our channels, and we release an episode every single day comes out. So, we're building this consistency of good information that we're getting to our audience right now. But now you're going to start to see us branch and start to spread out. And then it'll start to make sense that it's more like you're building a network or a channel, just like on television, and you have all these different shows. We're just kind of sticking in our world of health, fitness, and wellness. So, but you'll start to see that kind of evolve. I think the Tom Bilyeu episode, we get into that a little bit. I think just following him and what he's doing, in my opinion, he's doing it as far as guys that are in the podcast world. And
it's interesting too about Tom, and it just kind of reiterates some ancient wisdom that you hear all the time. And if you look at Tom, right, he founded or co-founded Quest Nutrition. It was a company that went from nothing to becoming I think number 2 fastest growing company at the time, and at one point was valued at over $1 billion. He left now to do something completely different because his passion changed. I mean, he had a passion in nutrition because he had lost all this weight, gotten fit, and he still has somewhat of a passion for health and nutrition, but he's got a bigger passion for some other things, and that's where he's placing his energy. And I think, and you hear this all the time, right? Like, follow your passion and, do what you love. You never work a day in your life. But there's definitely some truth to that. I don't think you're going to be as good at anything as you are at doing the thing that you love doing the most. You're just going to spend the most time doing it and put the most energy into it. And as you can see, we love talking.
Yeah.
So podcasting is just perfect for us.
It's working
But it's
out.
you ask good books and stuff, and I feel like I could rattle off books all day that I love, but
Stealing Fire,
Stealing Fire lately is
love
one that we're
yeah, those are great books. But as far as pertaining to what we're talking about, there's just that was hard, man. I remember when I just started diving, I was reading I was picking up these ebooks that I'd find, and there just wasn't a lot of good information out there.
E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's one I definitely recommend. But yeah, entrepreneur wise, there's few and far between. I feel.
Well, especially related to what we're doing. You know, what we're doing is it hasn't been around long enough for people to write books on how to do it. Right now, there's a lot of people that are claiming to be experts. But I've hired 3 companies and fired all 3 of them that were supposed to be social media companies that were going to help us grow to the next level.
Right.
That they're a bunch of, they're dudes that understand that there's a market for them, so they've created a business, but they really don't even know what the fuck they're doing. Literally, there's very, very few of those.
It's so new.
Yeah, it's so new that everybody thinks they know what to do, but there's very few companies out there that. And there's a few that are emerging, and we're talking with some people right now, but. It's hard to find people like that.
But you've been into books that were like self-help or psychology of learning how to work with your own psychology for business, and you've been into books like that. Because I've never I've read a lot, but my books are always into like some whatever subject I'm in at the moment. So if I'm into if I'm into being spiritual, I read The Cosmic Serpent or The Peaceful Warrior. I'm gonna read DMT, The Spirit Molecule, because I want to learn about whatever. But they're because
he's the hippie in the bunch.
Because of the show, though, we've met people who've written books that were more on that, kind of. I wouldn't say self-help as much. Like Stealing Fire, I don't know what you would classify that.
Well, it's flow. It's
but it's definitely like that. Like you can read the book and take from it and learn about promoting your own creative process.
It's applicable for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I don't know how much time we have.
We got all day.
Forever.
Yeah, we go all day, bro.
As long as you want.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you cut your shows off at a certain time or what?
I usually do about an hour, but it's usually more respectful for the guests.
I think Doug, we have a meeting at 1. That's when we have a meeting. Yeah, you're good, bro.
Yeah, rock and roll.
You got an hour more if you want.
So I actually wouldn't mind diving into some books outside of the business realm. You talk about Stealing Fire, and I've never read that book. So
Steven Kotler's, man. I would actually tell you to go start with. They jumped right into Stealing Fire, which I think was awesome too. But Rise of Superman was the first one, so he really introduces flow in that book and lays it out. For me, it was big because I grew up in the '80s, and I was heavy into like BMX biking, and I watched all those guys. I was a big Travis Pastrana fan. And Tony Hawk, and I remember watching
the ultimate
totally
movie.
bro,
Yeah.
right on.
What
right,
a shitty movie.
What are you talking about?
Blasphemy, bro.
Right now,
Horrible.
Come on, Sal.
But I don't know those that are listening that might remember.
Nobody
this.
knows that reference, huh? Damn it,
just us.
Oh well.
He's got 20s in the title of his show.
Well, they could be 29.
Your 20s.
If you're 29,
I listen to a bunch of old guys talking about the 80s.
If 29, you remember the double backflip going on in the dirt biking, right? For sure, like when that first happened. So I watched the whole evolution of it. Yeah. I remember watching the whole evolution of it, and I remember as a kid being like, holy shit, like just last year someone just did the first backflip. Now someone's doing a double backflip. It took us 30 years of this sport to get here, and now all of a sudden, so Steven Kotler dives into explaining that on like a neurological level and what's happening and what they're finding because they've done so much research on these athletes that are pushing their bodies to this life or death situation and what it's doing for progression. There's nothing else in any other sport, business where we're evolving that fast as we are in extreme sports. And so they're starting to hone in on the science. Companies like Red Bull have done millions of dollars into this research. The Navy SEALs are. Big companies like
Google.
Google.
About Google, yeah.
Oh,
like
yeah.
How they're getting like groups of people to achieve this state and be more productive, and it's very fascinating stuff.
You'll understand why if you've ever been to an office here in the Silicon Valley, when you go in, like especially Google, Facebook, their campuses where it's like kind of playland. There's a reason.
It's all to promote flow.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all. So when you read that book, a lot of that will come together for you. So I think Steven Kotler's 2 books I think are awesome.
The most interesting part of flow that I found on the neurological component is that because now they have brain scans and they'll do fMRI scans of a brain while a person enters flow and or meditates, or there's different ways to enter flow, and they're finding that the part of your brain that is the consciousness we live in, the not your subconscious but your conscious, the prefrontal lobe of the brain actually deactivates in many ways, and so it's your instinctive, intuitive.
You lose your sense of self a little bit.
You do, and for anybody who's ever been in like the zone or flow or in that state of mind where you're so focused on what you're doing, you're so in it. It's not like you're acting. It's like you're just moving through, almost like you don't know. You're not conscious of what you're doing, but you're doing everything perfectly. You lose sense of self a little bit, sense of time. Right. I've done that where I get into something and next thing I know, it's 3 hours later.
You're shooting basketball hoops and then all of a sudden you're not thinking about it. You've been drained in the last 20 in a row. Yeah.
And they find that it's the part of our brain that does all the analyzing and the, what am I doing here? Whatever. You just start to react. And the trippy thing about this for me is, I've been aware of the fact that the subconscious processes far more information than the conscious. Like the conscious brain, there's a very limited number, and I can't remember what the number is, but they've actually been able to quantify that your conscious brain only makes you aware of a certain amount.
I think it was like 40. I think I read something like that. I could be wrong.
I don't remember what the number was, but it's limited.
Yeah.
But life shit's going on all around you at all times, and it's getting recorded and it's getting processed. Think about if I were to throw a baseball at you, like think about the math that your brain has to calculate to know where that ball's going to land, but you just grab it, So you're totally unaware of all this information your brain is processing. And when you shut that prefrontal lobe part of the brain down a little bit or change the way it operates, it's like you move into this instinctive state. And they find this with psychedelic substances will promote this, which is why probably artists have, dropped acid and eaten mushrooms and smoked marijuana forever. It's what happens when people who've been meditating for decades, who are experts at meditation, how they can get into these states. The brain imaging looks almost the same, if not the same, in all these particular states. Really, really fascinating stuff. And then they talk about what they've been able to discover, like a series of steps to kind of help you get into that flow state.
Yeah, so both books are badass.
If you're a creative individual and your business or whatever's based on your ability to enter into that flow state, definitely worthwhile looking into.
Have you guys done things to enter into that? Like, do you actively take?
Absolutely. That's part of our.
It's
part of our creative process,
which we started doing. So it's funny because we have this creative process.
We did it by accident.
That we do, and when we come up with new programs, and then we read. Adam reads Stealing. Not Stealing Fire. Excuse me. Rise of Superman. And we interview, Steven Kotler, and he's talking about all these things, and I'm like, holy shit, we do that. We do that. We do that.
Check.
Yeah, like all these different things. So for us, when we go create a program, we book a residence somewhere that's at least a couple hours away, and it's somewhat remote because we lock ourselves in and we don't leave. On the way there, we enter flow. That's usually the point where we enter the zone. And so what we do in the car is we
riff back and forth.
We riff back and forth.
Crazy.
We give ideas. When we get there, we might have some, cannabis because that
we're high.
Flow. Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. And then
trying to be all PC over here. Like, who are we talking to right now?
We're talking to 20-year-olds.
Can we tell people that we're high?
For whatever reason, Adam.
Okay?
It's not like we're talking to Grandpa over here. Okay.
And Adam has to. He needs to take his pants off. It's all weird. But anyway. We get there.
This is all a Disney network.
This is all part of the process. I feel it's necessary. So I think
we get there. We lock the doors. We lock ourselves in.
Oh my god!
And we start going, and we put pieces of paper on the wall. We're writing on the wall. Doug is freaking in the background, like crazy, trying to take notes. And we're standing on tables, and we're arguing, and we're throwing shit, and it's really crazy.
We sound like maniacs.
But we come out with a product.
Yeah.
But it's the same fucking sequence every time. That's the trippy thing. Really, really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating,
and we're addicted to it.
I think
it's fun.
Big companies now, like the ones we were talking about earlier, are they're wise to this, and they're trying to create that atmosphere inside their work environment. And Kotler gets into the difference between macro and micro flow. So there's different levels and states of it. Like when you are hyper focused, and that's where he gets into the extreme sports. He ends up talking about how, when you're doing life or death, like you are at the highest level because you're gonna die if you don't.
And they problem solve real fast.
Yeah, and these guys they shared a bunch of stories of these guys when they're doing these crazy backflips, and they tell you like everything's in slow motion. They're doing that backflip and stuff, but they're so aware of themselves. They're so hyper focused on the moment, and that's ultimately what we're trying to get right. We're trying to become so present and so in the moment, focused on what we're currently doing. Which in this time and day, it's fucking hard, man. You get your phone's going off, with messages, social media. You got distractions up on TVs. You got all this shit going on all the time.
Yeah, because they talk about how when you're in this zone, I guess, and I guess we've all experienced this. When something interrupts it, you got to kind of try and get back into it. But I was thinking about this the other night. There's a lot of different experiences I think we've had as humans that can be probably categorized as being in that zone or that flow state. One of them is, you know, what you ever meet that girl or whatever and you fall in love and like it's just you and her and you're just, that's kind of like a flow state, right? That chemistry, the chemistry of like a good band.
Flow.
You know, when you watch a good band and they play for the first time together, whatever, and they just got that, they call it the X factor, that you know, that chemistry. That's probably group flow. So, I mean, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'd definitely listen to his interview for sure. Listen to his interview, and then those books would be awesome.
Yeah.
How important is you guys as a group for flow? Because I noticed you guys obviously riff really well off each other. And
Yeah, and off air we hate each other, so it's really important
weird.
that we get into that flow state before we get
But
on
at
here.
least we're honest about it with each other.
You know what? So it's funny, and this is why I knew right off the bat, like there was something there, because we sat down the first time. We all sat down and we went to Adam's house. This is before when we were discussing the podcast. We hadn't even started yet, and I don't know, 4 or 5 hours went by, and like there was not a moment of silence. It was just, and it was elevating.
That's
and
why we're
elevating.
so exhausted after these trips. Let me tell you, like it takes like 2 days to recover. Am I
true.
right? Yeah,
It's true.
It's just like this constant chatter and yelling, and you know, like posturing. Like
Yeah.
this is my no, but we all like it's crazy because we get to this point where we all sort of decide on the same thing. Like everybody sort of sharpens each other like really well. It's kind of crazy.
Well, it's very important that if you're doing this in a group state, right, where you have multiple personalities and multiple egos, that you have to have like guys and girls, whoever your partners are, that are able to kind of push their ego to the side.
That's a big one.
And
that's why this works for the most part.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why it wouldn't work if
You're looking at 3 massive egos,
Yeah.
but we're all
It's
pretty
scary.
But we're all okay with being wrong, and we're all okay with setting that aside, or at least we're all cognizant of checking that. That's key, because if you don't have that, I could totally see how 3 big ego dudes just at some point would hate each other. They wouldn't be able to get along.
Well, I think Sal said it one time. Like I think I came off really strong one time when we were yelling back and forth at each other, and I was
Tuesday.
I was there.
I was apologizing to him afterwards, and he said, "No, absolutely not. I love our passion for what we do, and I never feel like you're attacking me. You're speaking passionately about something about the business, and that challenges my way of thinking because I respect you intelligently. So we both do that to each other back and forth a lot." But because we both are open-minded and are okay with, like Sal said, being wrong, it creates this really dynamic chemistry, and that's the only way it would work. And we've actually had people that we had on the show before where we've talked about possibly bringing another person on, and the chemistry just isn't there. You have to you can't have a lot of ego in this. If you're in it to hear yourself talk and that's what you want the fame for it like that, none of us give a shit about
Trust
that.
me,
Well,
that's a losing battle.
Well, I think that's probably for success in anything. Something that I learned the hard way was to be okay with like considering someone else might have better advice than you do, or maybe someone else is right. Like, you've got people who are close to you. You got friends and family, people that you otherwise trust. You know what I mean? These are people that you'd let them watch your kids, or if you were dying, you trust their advice. But here you are not taking their advice because you think you know it all. Here's your mom or your dad or your sister, your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, and they're saying to you like, honey, I think maybe if you try this with your business, or maybe if you say this on your podcast or whatever you're doing, or maybe if you wore this, and you're thinking to yourself like you don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is I'm not going to even consider that. And it dawned on me the hard way, years ago, where I said to myself, I trust that person. Maybe I should just consider that their advice may be right and I'm wrong. And it was like a light bulb, like, holy shit, I could learn a lot by doing this, or by allowing the people around me who I trust in and taking their advice sometimes. And it has served me so well, but it is a massive ego check.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to consider
it hurts.
that they've
Yeah,
been
it
wrong for
hurts
10 years.
sometimes.
We all have the ability to detach like that. I think everybody has the ability to detach and look at it objectively. And then because of that, it works magically. And we actually encourage like the heated debate back and forth. Like that's part of flow in our opinion. Like it's one guy speaking really hard on something that this is the way we got to go. This is the smarter move, blah, 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 blah. And then making his argument. And then the other guy saying, no, it's this way. This is why. And, we'll even get back and forth. We're even talking over each other and speaking. And then like after everyone calms down, it's like, okay, now let's reassess what we just fucking talked about.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself, like, what's more important, winning an argument or just finding the right answer? Yeah. And I think if you're the kind of person that thinks winning the argument is more important, you'll never succeed. It's just not going to happen.
So let's walk back to like when you were in your 20s, because obviously now it's easy to look at you guys and see.
That wasn't
like,
that long ago, bro.
1 year ago.
I mean, I figured
you,
it wasn't.
This was way back.
Way back in the
Over the
dinosaur
mountains.
age.
Yeah.
No, but it's easy to see you guys and be like, fuck, they're really successful. Like, they got all this stuff. But, I mean, I'm sure mid-20s, you guys probably weren't quite there yet. What advice would you give to your guys' self and help speed that along?
So all of us had
No,
achieved.
give your own advice for yourself. Don't try and give.
Don't
my,
lump me into your
yeah, bro.
shit.
Don't lump me into your bullshit. Answer the question for yourself, and then let me answer what I
So
want.
what Adam did wrong in his
we.
20s.
Well, yeah, let me tell you what he should have done real
Let me
quick
tell you-
here.
We knew each other even though we did it.
All right, so I'll all right, just on myself. So at the, I knew I had some circumstances that were not common. I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do. I had a very strong passion. I wanted to be in fitness. I knew this early on. I think I was the age of 15 when I had decided I wanted to be in fitness somehow. And I had decided that I would do physical therapy because it was the one position where I knew you could do exercise and it was professional, and I could maybe have a good living doing that. And as soon as I turned 18, I got a job as a personal trainer because I figured what a great way to complement becoming a physical therapist. I realized very quickly that I loved being in the gym more than anything, and that a clinical setting probably would have just killed me. I wouldn't have enjoyed it. And I have this early on, very very young age. I had I had an attitude where I would work very very hard. I was very competitive, and I liked to talk about what I was passionate about. So it was like this perfect storm. So I go into my first gym, 18 years old, and within a matter of months, I was managing the fitness department. And about a year later, I was managing health clubs. So at 19 years old, I was managing health clubs and grand opening them and really having a good time. And the one piece of advice I would give, because I did some things right, I worked hard, I tried to learn, I was a good leader, I had decent integrity at that time, not as much as I do now, because in your 20s you kind of break rules and stuff. But what I would say to myself then that I know now is I would have said, focus a little bit more on balancing things out. And what I mean by that is my body definitely paid the price for the amount of work I did and for how I used fitness and supplements to help myself. Like I would drink, this drink doesn't even exist anymore, but it's called a Speed Stack. And I think American Bodybuilding made it.
I think it still exists.
Maybe. Not the same formula.
Oh no, yeah, no,
No.
that had ephedrine.
No,
in
it was ephedra, caffeine,
We had the
aspirin.
good stuff.
Yeah.
It was, methamphetamine
powerful.
in a bottle. And I drink like 3-4 of those a day. And I worked 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to
We all
10
did
p.m.
this. Yeah.
And I went nuts in these gyms, and I loved it. And years later, it did a number on me. And looking back, managing gyms for 2 years required the energy of what it would take me now to do 20 years, doing this. It was just a lot, and I wasn't balanced. And my health paid the price later on when I opened my own private wellness facility. I couldn't succeed in the same way because I had burned myself out and I had to learn the hard way how to succeed with balance. So if I could go back in time, that's the 100% first conversation I would have with myself.
Do you think you'd listen?
I think I'd listen.
Good question.
I think I'd listen because I'd see me. Be like, oh shit, you're from
It's me from the
I'm
future.
definitely taking your advice.
Yeah, that's true. A
Like,
future
well,
you literally
yeah,
don't
but
think-
what if it's a clone?
Would I have
You know what I
taken
mean?
my advice?
What if I told you that back
Well,
then?
You know what? It's funny. No, I was so hard headed. Yeah. So
That's why that was a
I
big
wish I
question.
would
Is
take
this-
the advice, but I
Yeah.
know me, and I was a bull. Like nothing would have stopped my path.
Is there anything you could have said to yourself that you'd be like, oh shit, that actually, I do need to listen to it? Or it's nothing?
He would have probably had to connect with you to where you really looked up and wanted to be like him.
probably
right?
like as a mentor.
It couldn't just be just a smart guy telling you. It'd have to be someone you looked up to and said like
and led
I
by
wa-
example.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Like,
another part of it. Is my mentors or my early mentors were maniacs.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did that. So that's what I saw. So maybe if I had worked with someone early on that was a mentor that showed me a little bit of that balance.
I think
Yeah.
that goes right in line. That's a good transition into what I would tell my younger self is that the circle you surround yourself with is so fucking huge. I can't remember the first time I heard this, but I repeat it all the time on our podcast, and I truly believe that your true net worth is your net circle. And when you start to really evaluate the people that you spend the most time with, it really is a reflection of yourself. And it's hard to fucking own up to that and do that, especially when you've got relationships that you built in your teens, that you went to high school, you went to college with, it's your boys, you played ball with, like you're really close, like, and the reason at that age when I was in my 20s, that's what justified keeping those people close to me. It didn't matter if they were dramatic or they'd like to drink alcohol all the time or they were fucking up with their life. None of that stuff mattered to me. What mattered was those were my boys from high school. We hung out all the time.
How long did it take you to realize like you outgrew them?
Dude,
so you hung on to that for a while.
Until I was about 26, man. I started, and here's the other piece I would tell myself. I would have got myself reading more when in my earlier 20s. I didn't really start reading a lot until I was about 25. And that's a whole other story on what drove me to go that direction. But I would have told myself to start that earlier and to really pay attention to my circle, because I think that in itself, just surrounding yourself with other people that are trying to grow themselves and are successful. And there's a saying that your income is normally an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Mm-hmm. And so really think about that. And if you got your boy who's and there's nothing against anybody who's working some 9-to-5 minimum wage job, that to each their own. But if you have bigger dreams for yourself and all 5 of your closest friends don't going anywhere really, and you have places you want to go, you should reevaluate where you're spending most of your time.
And I think a lot of that too, like just from my perspective, to kind of bring it in, I struggled a lot with my own personal ego, it being in the way of learning and becoming more optimal in the way that I did business, the way that I learned and processed information. It was just that I had this arrogance about me in my 20s where I didn't want to take advice. I didn't want to look real critically at what I was doing, because I carried myself like, well, if I don't know it now, I'm going to learn it myself, and I can learn all this stuff myself. And I guess the biggest piece of advice I would have given myself is really just to shatter that and to open myself up for criticism, and to be a little more introspective and really take to heart people's advice and seek it more. Because for me, it was just like, you just want to take on the world when you're that age. You want to, like, all the way, I'm going to be successful if it kills me. And it kind of goes back to kind of what Sal was saying. Like, you idolize these maniacs, and those are the wrong people to seek out. Like, you want to seek out the people that are balanced and are killing it. And how are they doing it?
Yeah, you know what? That's such excellent advice, because the difference between myself now and myself in my 20s isn't so much that I know more shit. I mean, I do, and that's going to happen naturally as you get older. You have more time on Earth. If you don't learn more as you get older, then something's wrong, right? But the big difference between me now and me in my 20s is now I know I don't know shit. In my 20s, I didn't know that. I thought I knew everything. So now I'm growing faster because I know I don't know. Mm-hmm. In my 20s, I didn't grow quite as quickly, because the whole time I thought, I got this, I know this. Now when I enter a situation, I'm like, okay, I don't know anything. I'm going to look to the people who are doing really well at this, and at first I'm going to copy them, and then I'm going to ask them questions, and then maybe I'll learn that, because I know I don't know shit. And that's like the best advice, I think. You know what? I take mine back. If I could go back in time, I'd tell myself, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
You don't know shit.
I swear to God, like, you don't know anything. Just remember that.
100%.
Yeah, I think that and the reading in the circle, man, those things would probably have changed, because there's a lot of things we did right too. Like, I mean, I was 19 years old when I first started working for the company, and then by 21 I had bought my house. And I was making 6 figures in Silicon Valley, which is not a lot of money, but it was back then. Back then that would be like someone making like $250 in here. So you'd be, I was a young kid, right? I had my place, like I was living the life. I wish I would have known like how stupid it was for me to be like spending all this money on my friends, and that's all my ego, right?
Did you invest a lot of your money?
Oh, not at all.
Damn.
I blew a ton of my money in the 20s.
There's some good advice right there.
Well, that's
there,
what
man.
I'm saying. Like,
because I did the same stupid shit.
Well, I was still surrounding myself with a lot of the people I probably shouldn't have been, and I felt so proud of myself because what I came from and where I was at, that I felt the need to flaunt it to feed my own ego. So I would fucking pay for boys' trips to Vegas, buy them hella nice shit all the time. We went to the bar. I picked the tab up always, like limo rides everywhere. Like I 20 years old, felt like I was
Daddy over here.
living the life, man, just feeling like a boss.
Would you get in return?
And nothing. That's just it. I mean, and there's some things to take away from that, right? Because I also do believe that there's balance, right? I feel like, I'm a firm believer in making sure if you're someone who works really, 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 really hard, that you should reward yourself too. So I remember this was my late 20s when I had started this, like when I started reflecting on all the fucking money I had made and what I didn't have. I went, okay, I got to fucking fix this. And so I gave and I still stick to this day, this kind of rule of thumb. No matter how much money I'm making, I always say that, okay, I will never spend more in the month than what I put away to save. So if I have $10 or $100 left over after I pay all my bills, I can spend 50 of that because 50 of it has to be saved. And so no matter where my income was, I just kind of started living by that money. And save could mean invested too, because a lot of times I had to be investing in a company.
That's what I wish I did, is invest.
So, and that didn't happen until my late 20s did I put that together. So I think that was another big probably piece of advice I'd give myself is, all that ways. God, I don't know where I would be if I would have those nights in Vegas and, trips like that, if I would have not spent that on all. And I should have just spent it on myself. I'm not saying you shouldn't have done that because those were fucking some great times. Don't get me wrong. I do not want to be detouring somebody that's 25 years old. If you have an opportunity to go live in a suite at the fucking Vegas pool and have a great time in the cabanas and do all that, do that shit because I'll never forget all that stuff. Like, that's important. But I definitely think there's
but not all the time.
That there's balance, it's
not every weekend.
No. Yeah, it's also, and I think it's just not paying for all these people because I need to feed my ego. I think that's what I wish I would have realized that back then.
One of the things I'm trying to do actively right now is surround myself with better people, but it's not always easy to find those people. How did you guys? What was some of the tips and tactics you used to actually go out and meet better people?
It's funny. That can be tough for some people because it's hard to just randomly start, go up to someone and have conversation. But one of the easiest things you can do, and it's extremely effective, is ask questions. People typically don't mind talking about themselves. So if you are, next to someone, or you just been introduced to someone who you think is successful and you want to get to know them more and maybe make a connection or whatever, start asking them straight up. It's actually when I was in my 20s, I remember thinking that this was crazy, but now, it makes sense to me. But I would ask successful people questions, almost afraid like I'm annoying them, right?
Yeah, but I think what he's saying,
they like talking about.
I think what he's saying though, and I think that what's hard is if you want to be a millionaire, it's not like there's a bunch of millionaires that you can just write. You're 27 years old or so, and you're like, hey, I want to be a millionaire, but it's not as easy. It's
not just money though.
But let's be. I mean, I'm assuming that's where that question is coming from, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've met a lot of people that are.
He says that all nonchalant, like it's no big deal, like just run into people like that that takes. That takes networking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Time. This is
like a dating site.
No. Listen, I think this is more great advice. That this is something that takes time, and I think what happens to most people that want that, they want that for selfish reasons first. So they want. I want to be. I heard on Mind Pump that my net circle or my net worth is my net circle, and that if the 5 people that I spend my most time with, that's how much money I make. So I'm going to go find 5 millionaires and spend as much time as possible. Right? Sounds like a good idea. But it's so selfishly driven and motivated that you're probably going to come off that way in those relationships too, where if you genuinely are good to people and you genuinely want to help others, I feel like you're going to find this like leapfrogging and stuff. And for me, it started way back at a very young age when I didn't even have much, but I did a lot for others, and I did a lot for others unselfishly and not expecting anything in return. And I think when you start to build a reputation like that, you start to attract other people that are like that. And you just then at that point, you just need to be aware that sometimes you've got dead weight that you're carrying. Sometimes you have a friend that you're hanging on to that you're still spending time with. He's sucking so much energy from you. He's not allowing you to get out there and network and do what you can do by continuing to spend more time with the other 4 friends of yours that are doing things, So learning to cut the dead weight and to just keep feeding that circle of friends. And you're not going to be hanging out with millions. You're not going to be some kid who's fresh out of college, gets his first, $50,000 a year job, and you're going to have all these millionaires that want to spend time with you. Let's be fucking honest.
Sure, but there are some specific strategies you can do. Like we know someone who I think he's an investment banker or a stockbroker, and he does Uber driving so that he can meet people, pick people up from the airport. I was a trainer for a long time.
Yeah.
I met, obviously, because as a personal trainer, that tends to be something.
Bartending, all
There you
these
go.
different mediums, like waiting tables. Like I remember I used to doing this all the time. I would see people come in with an entourage, or every now and then you get like a real successful person to sit in your table, and I was not afraid to ask them questions, like, hey, like, what are you doing, like, just building that rapport. Like I think the first step is really to build the rapport, not push yourself on them, just to build that comfort zone. So then,
God, if you think about all the people we met through training,
yeah,
I mean that's probably it.
That's it. Yeah.
Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And I think that's an important, the rapport part, and I'll give you an example. Literally, this just happened. So we just had somebody send a great guest. We just had Justin Wren the other day. An incredible story. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, that was amazing. First time ever. I think I almost cried 3 different times in the episode.
Yeah,
Powerful.
We held
story.
each other afterwards.
That was
Which is normal.
That was a referral from a friend of mine, Jordan of Art of Charm. He has a great podcast, and it's real easy when we're all fucking busy as shit, right? To not recognize that, but for him to do that, to go out of his way to help my business out, and something that he didn't have to do, I think it's very important that you show that your gratefulness. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do that. And I especially a lot of men, because I feel like men feel like that's weird to reach out to another man and say, "Hey, bro, I love you. Thank you for that. That meant a lot to me." Like, tell him how that really made you feel. Like, that just sounds fucking, I don't want to do that or scared to do that, but that goes a long ways, and they appreciate it. So, and something as simple as like, and it's easy when I have, of course, an assistant that I can say, please go do this for me or whatever like that. But I think it's the thought or the action that matters more than anything else, is that I'm going, hey, make sure you send him a card, write this in here, I want him to know this, and then he gets it, and then right away you can see the way he receives it, and then when he texts me back and thanks me, those little things like that are so important when you're building relationships. And when you continue to do that for others like that, it's amazing. You start attracting other people like that, but it takes a lot of humility. You got to be okay with doing things like that. Men have such a hard fucking time expressing their feelings and saying that. I think that's an important piece, something I would have told myself in the 20s too. Quit being such a macho dude and thinking that I got to act a certain part or be a certain way and stuff like that. Throw all that fucking shit out the window and be you. I think that goes a long way.
That's good advice.
That's great advice. I love it. And another thing for you guys, so I want to kind of get actionable in all of you guys' different advice here.
Yes.
As far as humbling yourself and realizing you don't know anything, if you had to write a program for someone, how they could humble themselves and make them realize, hey, you actually don't know as much as you think, what would that program look like?
Wow, that's
Ooh, a
great.
program.
You mean like not a workout program, obviously.
But that kind of idea where it's like, all right, read
Well,
this
we did that
book,
with Prime,
go try to climb a mountain or whatever it is. Like, how did you guys?
You know what?
Yeah.
I think I think what you're saying is kind of that's a good path. I mean, maybe go feed the homeless, go volunteer at a hospital, go do a ride along with a police officer. Like, those will probably wake you up quite a bit, because those are areas where we think we know shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know I'm being a cop or whatever. Go ride with a cop and see what it's like, or go see if you can volunteer somehow at the ER at your hospital and see what that looks like, or go talk to people who do things that you don't know much about and see how much you realize that you don't know. The more you put yourself out there, the more you probably will realize that.
I would also where I think back, like, where was this an issue for me? Like, right, where was I cocky or thought I was so badass and thought I knew so much would be in my profession, right? Like, when I was a trainer, I was pretty damn good at what I did, and I knew I was pretty damn good at what I did. So I think what really humbled me later on, which was ironic, in my early 20s and stuff, I didn't spend a lot of time looking for people who were doing what I was doing and doing it much better. I was so focused on myself and what was right in front of me. So I started seeking out like brilliant minds in my field, and that's humbling in itself. When you think you're a badass, but then you really find out like who the real badasses are and what you're doing. That's humbling in itself, and you get to learn. And then you start to put it together. Like, wow, I don't know as much as I think I know.
I think something too that I know Sal does really well that has impacted me quite a bit is he's always seeking out like a different advice. So somebody that has something that's conflicting with the information you are provided. So what that does is it allows you to see a different perspective.
That's a great point.
And then also come back and reassess whether yours is strong enough to overcome that, right? And so now we reevaluate how you think about things and how you learn, and that really struck a chord with me.
That's
because
huge, dude.
I was so just, no, this is stupid. No, this is stupid. I'm just sticking with these things I know to be true. How much do you know them to be true though? Like, have you really dug deep into
bro?
that?
That's I think that's brilliant advice. That goes right along with the book that I just finished, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That's where people have such a hard time challenging their own ideologies,
Mm-hmm.
And I think learning to do that intentionally, like the things that you believe the most, the things you have the most faith in, you should go after, challenge those the hardest.
Yeah.
Instead of just because you believe it so hard, you just go, oh, that's not an area I need to think about. I'm going to think about the things I don't know a lot about. Like, no, wait a second. You should be checking yourself on the things that you believe the most in. And that's hard. So I think that's right along with just saying that's a great book.
There's a psychological phenomenon. People don't want to do that. It's called cognitive dissonance. This is when you will refuse all the information in the world because realizing that you're wrong shatters your identity or who you think you are. A great place for your if you got a bunch of 20-year-olds that are listening right now, a great place to look right now is politics because it's so hot, it's so heated, and what you want to do,
so hot.
You might be in one camp, like I'm super, this particular political party or this particular ideology. Look at the other side and find the areas that can be proven through history and science. And one of the easiest things you can look at is economics. Economics is definitely the science within politics. There's lots of opinions on different things, but look at economics and actually look at things. And what's funny is, as a kid, when I did this, there was a lot of beliefs that I had that I was like, oh shit, the numbers totally do not support me. And I had to kind of reevaluate, my identity a little bit. But when you can find those areas where you can see some hard evidence and then look on the opposite side and see what it says,
I think
you might be very surprised.
The political side's so brilliant and it's so true. I don't know how many people I immediately lose respect for when I meet them and they have a hard political stance, but then they don't read the experts that are on the other side. Mm-hmm. It's like you all you're doing is feeding your own dogma. Like your whole library is filled with all this hardcore conservative views, and then you do the same thing when you go to the liberal side. They're all hardcore liberal side. It's like, well, shouldn't you read the other side? You already know a ton of shit here. All you're doing is trying to strengthen your own insecurities that way because you still are uncertain about it, and you just keep feeding one dogma, and you want to get put in a box, and you got to go the other way.
Well, you just know whenever you do that in whatever the arena is, whenever you do that, whenever you go and you honestly listen to the other side, don't just look at it, but listen to it and see if there could be some truth in what they're saying. One of two things is going to happen at the end. Either one, you're going to know your side much better because you don't know your side well until you know the other side, especially if you want to argue it or explain it. Like, I need to know what the counter arguments are. And if I can overcome all those with good, solid, evidence-based, arguments, I just solidify my position. Or the second thing can happen. I'm wrong. I go over there and I learn and I'm like, holy shit, I'm wrong. But at the end of it, you're going to come out with, you're more towards right, more towards correct, more towards the actual answer. So be okay with I might be wrong because I don't care about that. What I care about is finding the truth. And that'll always direct you. It'll always direct you for self-growth. And it can be kind of an exhausting process over time. But every time you come out of it, each growth period, you're just, oh my God, you're better and better and better each time.
The last piece of advice I kind of want to talk about is balance. And you guys said balance, and this is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but how do you balance your life now? Like, you wake up at 7 o'clock, work till whenever? What's balance mean?
So balance I used to think of it.
Achilles heel.
Yeah. First off, we're really working on that because
I'm glad you started.
Yeah,
with that.
we're all.
We have no business.
The only reason,
this.
well, hold on. The only reason why we talk about balance so much now is because that happens to be the area that we know that we're the worst at and we're working on. So we're very aware that we suck at balance, which is now allowing us to really look at what balance actually means. And in the past, I thought balance meant you have an equal time of not working to working, or you make sure you do lots of vacations and you sleep a lot and then you work hard. And I didn't understand. That's what my understanding was. Now, my understanding of balance, which has changed quite a bit now, is that balance really means utilizing the tools that you have available, exercise, sleep, what you do in your spare time, whether that's reading and learning, or whether that's leisure and relaxation, partying, eating healthy and sometimes eating the cake or whatever. Look at all these tools that you have, all these things you do throughout your life, and use them to optimize your body and brain's performance. And I'm using those terms because there's a lot of type A people who are listening right now. That's going to resonate with.
It's like, it's a performance enhancer.
Right. It's going to resonate with them right away, right? But and we'll get into that in just a second. But you look at all these things and you say, okay, how can I optimize my body's performance? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm in a high stress environment. Go. I'm working 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm not getting much sleep. I'm just fucking intense all the time. The last thing I should probably do with my exercise is make it super intense. That's not optimizing or allowing me to do what I need to do to perform at my absolute peak. If anything, I'm taking away from it.
You're working against yourself by doing that.
So that's not optimizing. Now what happens is people in that state of mind of go, is that's what they apply to everything. And they think it's cumulative, like it's going to make them go faster and harder. And in reality, it's taken away. So what I would do with exercise with that individual is I would say, okay, I'm go all the time. I am busting my ass. I need to work out in a way that's going to make me do that a lot better. So how do I do that? Oh, it looks like I'm going to be doing yoga. Looks like I'm going to be meditating. Looks like my workouts are going to be slower and focused more on mobility and stretching and relaxation or whatever, because now I'm optimizing what I'm doing. But now to go back about the whole, do what you need to do with your tools to optimize your body. If you go into it with that mentality, if I go into these things thinking, I'm going to do everything I can to make myself perform better, you won't actually find balance. You need to go into it seeking balance. And that sounds totally counterproductive. It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it's changing that paradigm a little bit for me.
It's all
about the mindset of it.
It's finally helped me find some of it. Like, I knew meditating would make me better at my job before. And if I did it, it was with that intent. And it made my meditating very ineffective and inconsistent. And I just didn't do it. Now I go into meditating because I want to meditate. Because now I want to learn how to meditate better. And the side effect of that now is I'm finding my performance is better. So that would be my advice for balance. But again, I'm a white belt at this, and I'm just learning how to get into that area.
Well, I think,
and I'm worse.
I think that's part of the balance too. Is you're always seeking a better version of it, and that it's just these levels of awareness. Aware of like, oh my God, when I do this, this, and this, I always tend to get sick. When I do this and this, my body goes to shit. When I do this, this, and this, like my bank account goes down.
Patterns.
Yeah, you start putting together like.
Talk about one that you did recently where you started doing the sleep routine. That was a big fucking thing.
Yeah. So and
it was a little change, but it was a big change.
Yeah. I do. So we're all kind of, I feel like, on this kick right now of really trying to find this, right. And I feel like the Stephen Kotler book was a major one for me because. I'm the worst, I feel like, at being present. And it affects my relationships, friendships, my relationship with Katrina, my business relationships. And it's trying to find that balance, right? I do that in air quotes because I feel like you will always be trying to define that. I think that you have to accept that. If you say you have great balance, I think you're already lying to yourself. I think that we're always trying to find better balance, and I think that changes as your priorities change. Sal was mentioning learning how to do your workouts and eating to complement your, business life and all the other stresses that you're putting on yourself. But, there was a time when I was competing and that was a major priority for me. So everything else, I was complementing that, which meant sacrifices. I wasn't going on weekends to friends' houses where there's going to be drinking and partying. I wasn't traveling a lot. I was making my food. I wasn't going out. I wasn't going to the movies a lot where I'd have temptations like popcorn and candy, so my priorities just shifted. I don't think I was out of balance at all. I think I just put more of my energy in this direction. But I also recognize, too, that, I had to separate myself and say, is this a lifestyle that I want to live for the rest of my life? And no, that's why I tell people all the time, that's why I don't have a desire to compete at that level, because the amount of sacrifice and discipline it takes to do that means I have to give somewhere else, and I have to start to do things that complement the ultimate goal of here of, getting up on stage or whatever. So I think we're always doing this ebb and flow because we're constantly changing what our priorities are, and we're always seeking that balance. I think it's more about awareness and paying attention to, hey, when I do this and this is what happens from that. And then that means I got to give a little bit of here and being able to step out, separate yourself and really assess that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you want me to know, I'm still working on it. I mean, I didn't know if I was
Justin's
like,
Justin's like,
chime
I'm
in
the,
on
I'm
this
the
because
worst
you
at
guys
it.
are like going on. Yeah, no, I'm still trying to seek that because I have so many things that come up, and I look at them more as sprints. So there's time where I seek conflict, and I know that sounds crazy, but that's one of those things that I feel that's where I grow the most. And so I'm just that kind of person that like doing a podcast was like super scary to me. I hate public speaking. I hate, being singled out to have a conversation where people are just sitting here right now listening to what I'm going to say, like that freaks me out. Yeah. But, I knew I would get better at it by exposure therapy and just, working my way through these things. And, I've done this on many different levels where whether it's sports or whether it's academics or, you name it. I understand now like what I have to do in order to optimize myself in all different aspects of life and be a better father and be, a better husband. And all these things require a lot of this sort of a balance. And so like Adam's saying, it's really the awareness of understanding where you are currently and what patterns you've established as far as this is what my day-to-day process looks like. And, you evaluate how much you're putting into one direction and now where I need to shift or where I need to sharpen. And so that's kind of like how I assess. I assess things on a day-to-day basis. So every single day is a different day. And that's something that there's a whole new set of priorities that I have to focus on. And the older I got, like the more I realized that like I really have to pay attention to this. And sometimes it helps to write it down. Sometimes I just know inherently like, okay, these are the things I need to address and get better at. And then that absorbs a lot of my focus for that period.
Yeah, it's funny when as a trainer I knew this with fitness because I would get clients who were super unbalanced in their life and then they'd come and train and exercise properly and they would all say the same thing. I'm better at my job. I'm better in meetings. I'm a better salesperson now. And not realizing that was going to happen. They thought it was just about, the doctor said I need to work out because my blood pressure's high or my wife's telling me to come over here. I need to lose a little bit of weight. And next thing you know, they're doing better at work. So unfortunately, going into things with that as your goal might not make you balanced, but it's true. That is a side effect. You actually become more effective when you're more balanced.
This is the kind of episode I love. This is the kind of episode I'm going to personally re-listen to, and there's already a shitload of things and notes I don't even know if I can handle anymore here. I want to wrap up here. There's already so much advice, but any last-minute advice for the listeners?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tune into Mind Pump.
That was going to be my next
Enjoy our
question.
MAPS programs.
I think he's
I'll tell you
naturally-
what. I'll tell you what. Especially if you're a kid in your 20s right now, guy or girl, you live in the most exciting time ever in human history. Literally, in my pocket, I have a device that has access to all of the written and recorded information of mankind. It is the most powerful tool ever invented, ever, and we now have it accessible easily and almost for free. And so, I tell you this, do not take that for granted. Social media is great, but it can have some amazing, there's some amazing uses for it that can move your life forward. There's some uses for it that'll keep your life stagnant. There's sites on the internet that are going to just take up your time, and there's some that are going to give you more time back. Like, use that tool of information because it's unprecedented. It's amazing. You have the ability to learn and do anything at this moment. So don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
And yeah, so for all the listeners, obviously you've heard Justin, Adam, and Saul talking. They're actually great interviewers too. Check out Mind Pump, great show, and thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Oh, thanks for having us on, man.
Just a quick reminder before you go, performancenutbutter.com. This is the project I've been working on. This is my entrepreneurial journey adventure, or at least my newest entrepreneurial adventure. And it's really, I tried to have a product that I believed in. And this is something that it tastes good. And I really think it's good. It tastes good because it's what your body really craves on a deep primal level. It's just macadamia, coconut, cashews, and just a hint of Himalayan sea salt. That's it. There's no junk. There's no BS. None of that other stuff that you see. And like your typical protein bar or energy bar that's filled with artificial ingredients. This is just something delicious. At least do me a favor. If you listen to this show, go to performancenutbutter.com. Check out the Kickstarter page. donate $1. I mean, if you really like the show and you don't want to actually taste the product, you're allergic to nuts or some goofy thing like that, then just donate $1 and it would mean the world to me. The start of Kickstarter, the first few days are extremely important. So it would really help me out if you can go there. It would make it so this product could get off the ground. So performancenutbutter.com. Thank you guys for listening and have a great day. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter. And I release a new video every Monday. And by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it. Subscribe. Like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.